The blistering heat on the tactical firing range did not compare to the cold chill of standing before my past. After 15 years in shadow operations and 3 clandestine deployments across overseas combat zones, I walked among raw recruits without rank or recognition. My real identity remained hidden on the roster, but my distant father recognized my face instantly. I wondered if he could see the marks of war in my steady posture. My name was Chloe, though on official documents I was merely a line item waiting for evaluation. Standing on lane 8, I gripped my battle-worn sniper rifle while surrounding soldiers prepared their weapons. I had learned 4 foreign tongues over my career, yet silence remained my most effective weapon in times of conflict. The surrounding officers had no idea that I was the phantom marksman from past covert missions. Growing up in a strict military household meant survival required absolute obedience to authority. My father, Colonel Richard Sterling, had spent decades commanding men and shaping my brother, Wayne, into the perfect young officer. As the only daughter, I was expected to remain quiet and pursue a conventional domestic path. When I enlisted in secret after high school, my father turned his back and cut off all communication. I started in military logistics before pushing myself through intense physical trials to reach special operations. While my brother received praise and promotions at family dinners, I endured brutal field conditions and perfected my marksmanship in total obscurity. Stories began circulating about an unidentified female sniper who never missed a target during urban combat. I preferred staying anonymous because legends were always safer when they lacked a real name. Standing at the range, my father stepped forward with a condescending grin to mock my presence. He called out to the surrounding crowd that they should let the lowly soldier shoot just for fun. The younger recruits laughed along, eager to impress a retired senior commander who still carried weight. I felt the familiar sting of his old dismissal, but I refused to let my composure shatter. Without uttering a word, I stepped toward lane 8 and placed my heavy rifle on the shooting bench. The metal barrel bore scratch marks from dusty rooftops in Aleppo where survival depended on absolute precision. My father crossed his arms, expecting me to falter under the weight of public scrutiny and pressure. I adjusted my sight, took a deep breath, and prepared to speak through lead instead of arguments. The first 3 shots cracked through the humid air, tearing through the exact center of the paper target downrange. By the 10th round, the chatter around the gallery faded into an anxious and stunned stillness. 20 rounds later, I had shattered a 23-year shooting record that no marksman had ever touched. The silence on the range was now thick with astonishment as everyone realized what had occurred. I lowered the weapon gently and rolled up my left sleeve to relieve the stinging heat against my skin. Etched into my forearm was the hidden unit emblem that only elite special operators were permitted to wear. General Thomas Cole stepped out from the observation tower, staring at the fresh ink with sheer disbelief on his face. He whispered to his staff if I was the legendary phantom from those classified missions. My father went completely pale as the surrounding officers snapped to attention and turned toward me in reverence. The same recruits who had joked moments earlier now stared at the ground in complete shame and regret. For the first time in my life, my father could not construct a sharp story to diminish my achievement. I held his gaze without anger, knowing that my quiet discipline had finally exposed his arrogance. Yet, I had not returned to this facility merely to settle an old personal score with my father. Months prior, while conducting an internal audit on military records, I had uncovered a systemic network of falsified training documents. Dozens of underqualified officers had been quietly certified through an elite program managed by my father after his retirement. I realized that my own family legacy was built on favors, corruption, and systemic deception. I spent weeks gathering digital evidence, recorded conversations, and modified files from secure military servers. During my investigation, I discovered a deleted message written by my father that ordered my removal from consideration for a high command post. He had actively blocked my career simply because he feared my independence and feared I would uncover his secrets. Armed with proof, I prepared to confront the rot at the highest level. 2 weeks later, I stood before a formal tribunal panel seated in a sterile hearing room. My father sat at the side table, his jaw clenched as I submitted the sealed dossier of evidence to the board. I testified calmly that the documentation proved widespread fraud originating from his command structure without showing any personal malice. When asked if he wished to defend himself, my father bowed his head and offered no reply. The board stripped my father of his remaining titles and launched full legal proceedings against the network. While some accused me of betraying my family, many quiet soldiers thanked me for restoring integrity to the ranks. A week later, my father called my phone with a tired voice, asking why I had destroyed his legacy. I answered that I did it to honor the code he had once taught me. Days after our final phone conversation, a handwritten letter arrived in my mail stack without a return address. Inside were 3 simple lines from my father stating he had always believed I was weak, but he was wrong. Those brief words did not erase years of emotional distance, but they confirmed that he finally recognized my worth. I folded the paper carefully and stored it away as proof of a quiet victory. Months later, I returned to Lane 8 as a mentor to train a new generation of marksmanship candidates. The heat was still heavy on the gravel, but the old weight on my chest was gone for good. A young recruit tentatively asked if I was the famous sniper from the military legends. Passed around base, I smiled softly and replied that I was simply someone who learned the true power of quiet discipline. I spent the afternoon teaching those young recruits how to control their breathing and maintain emotional composure under immense pressure. I showed them that true leadership does not require loud demands or harsh criticism to command respect from others. They listened intently, absorbing every detail as we worked through grueling precision, drills until the sun began to set. My experience had become a guiding light for those who felt overlooked in the ranks. Before leaving the facility for the last time, I attached a small brass plaque above the resting bench at Lane 8. The inscription stated that the space was reserved until the marksman returned, ensuring my legacy would remain untouched. I wrapped my rifle in cloth, locked it inside a wooden case, and placed the key where it would stay safe. I did not need to prove myself ever again. Walking away from the firing line, I realized that true strength comes from standing firm in your own truth. You do not need to fight every critic or shout over those who try to diminish your potential. Sometimes the greatest triumph is simply building your own path with quiet endurance until your actions speak for themselves. In the end, silence can become the most powerful story you ever tell.